Fingers crossed. There we go. So I hope you guys all enjoyed us today, and I get at least one useful bit of nugget of information out of this. Hopefully maybe more than that. I attended this session with these guys a few weeks ago and found them all incredible. So that's why I've gathered them all together again today. So hopefully you guys get to hear a little bit about some of the stuff that they've got to say, some of the tips and tools. So the format of this morning, first up, I'm going to ask our guest speakers to introduce themselves and to share some insights to you all, and then we'll open up to questions. And you can do the questions, you can either stick your little virtual hand up, which is kind of one of the options at the bottom, or you can just physically just put your hand up. There is also the option for you to ask questions in the chat, and I'll keep an eye on that as well. So first up, we'll speak with Chris and Lorraine. Are you happy to go first there, guys?
Yeah, Guy, absolutely. Hey, welcome everyone. So my name is Chris Wilkinson. I'm Managing Director of First Retail Group, and we are strategists who work with consumer-facing sectors and destinations. So we've worked with many town and city centres across New Zealand, in fact, pretty much most of the cities and many of the provincial and rural areas around the country. We work overseas as well, so projects in Australia and the UK and Pacific Islands. We've worked a lot in the Wellington area, so projects for Hutt City Council, Kapiti Coast District Council, Wellington and Wellington Regional Council. And we've worked a lot in this area, so Porirua City Council we've been doing a lot of work with recently, and also Wellington with Tawa. And I'm an old Glenside boy, so very familiar with the area, and many memories of cycling through Tawa, and it's still a very favourite spot for me to cruise through when I'm out to see more Wilsons. And Lorraine? Hi, I'm Lorraine. So I've worked with Chris for a number of years now, so all of what he said, and yeah, I guess with our work where we've travelled, extensively around the country and the globe doing this kind of work, it's I guess the beauty of where we're at the moment is we're able to spend a bit more time, well, a lot more time within our suburbs and places where we've, quite invested interest in. So great to be out there supporting the local cafes and here just to answer any questions that anyone might have, and just support Bernadette with her role and pulling everyone together. So you're good on you, Bernadette, for offering this up to your members.
Thank you. And next we'll move to James.
Morning, everybody. James Bennie here, WellingtonNZ. Basically, I'm a business growth manager here, so I meet about 80 businesses a year looking for their capability gaps and needs, and then matching them with providers and gurus and coaches and things like that can help uplift them. My history is, I've had two businesses built and sold in the past. One was a hospitality training company and consultancy, and one was a clothing label. So I've done the hard yards and I know the pain points there. So that's really helps me in my role now, mentoring and nurturing businesses. I'm also an investor, a small-time investor in a local beverage company. So it's quite good doing those roles. I've also been on boards such as Wellington on a Plate, the Cordon Bleu, Judging Hospitality Awards. So a bit of a broad spectrum there. So if you've got any questions, fire them away and we hope to answer some of them for you.
Thanks, James. And Joseph?
Thanks, Bernadette. Yeah, I'm Joe Pagani from the Wellington Chamber of Commerce. I look after the organisation's policy and external relations. So that means a lot of our government advocacy, our government relations, and also a lot of our communications, both to our members and into the wider media as well. So the Chamber is a business advocacy organisation, and we've been around for over 150 years in Wellington. We also operate under the brand Business Central, which covers businesses all over the central New Zealand region, up to Hawke's Bay, New Plymouth, down as far as Nelson as well. But in Wellington, we operate as a Wellington Chamber and have quite a well-established brand there. So we represent a broad range of members, from sole traders to some of New Zealand's top employers. And we have services that cater right along that route. We help businesses start up on their payroll, their health and safety, their employment relations, right up to the services that larger businesses will need, which is often in the advocacy and government relations space. Yeah, great to be here.
Thanks, Joseph. Finally, Nick, would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh, well, kia ora tātou. My name is Nick Leggett. I work for the trucking industry in New Zealand, and I'm the Chief Executive of Transporting New Zealand, which is sort of trucking advocacy and policy shop. And we've had a fair bit to do with not only commentary, but some active work in trying to reduce the supply chain challenges that New Zealand's seen. And I think we'll probably get onto it, but those challenges are all connected internationally as well. So we're not sort of the masters of our own destiny totally with these problems, but looking forward to the discussion.
Oh, thanks, Nick. Now, before we open it up, I just want to say a little bit about our next session. So in 2 weeks' time, on Wednesday, the 5th of April, we have Nick Cree, who's the founder of Smash Go. He's a digital transformation coach and consultant. He's a former Kiwi. He's living in Australia at the moment, so we're going to get him up nice and early for an 8 o'clock start for us. I think it's 5 o'clock for him, but he's happy to do that. He'll talk through some simple strategies about how to get ahead in the online world. So that's Wednesday, the 5th of April. So who has any questions? Who wants to start the questions rolling? If you'd like to put your hand up. Or do you want me to just go around the room? If we could we could possibly go around the room and people could introduce themselves. Would that work? Judith, are you happy to start that off for us?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. Judith Gray. I'm the owner of Nada Bakery in Tawa and Johnsonville. Many of you know us well. And yeah, interested to hear what some of these people can bring to the table to help small to medium businesses in the area in this post-COVID, or it's not post-COVID yet, in these COVID times. Thank you.
Cool. So does anyone want to jump in and give us some little nuggets?
Bennett, I'll lead with the question if you like.
Okay, thanks, Richard.
I guess mainly for Nick at the start, and Tim mentioned this supply chain. At the beginning of COVID, I guess 2 years ago now, there was a big fuss I made about shipping not reaching New Zealand. But more lately, it's just the staff levels of getting truck drivers and people to put stuff on shelves and stuff. But back at the beginning, is the shipping still a big issue of congestion, and what's any end in sight for that?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Richard. Look, I think there are sort of several sections to the problem, and shipping is a big one. And if you can imagine that New Zealand is at the end of the supply chain, and in some cases we've dropped off traditional shipping routes, or we just become a low priority. And the original problem when the pandemic started was a cease of production as workforces were taken out in several territories. That went like a wave. So if you imagine shipping all of a sudden had nothing to carry, but when production started up again, there was too much. And so the demand for containers and the demand for ships exploded. And we saw the cost of shipping increase significantly. So thinking about a container reaching New Zealand, was perhaps went from about $2,000 US to 12,000. Some of those spikes, of course, have reduced, but there's still the sort of wave issue of where there's a whole lot of ships ready to take product. They've taken it, and then the next batch is ready, but the ships aren't there. If you can think about it in those terms, we've also been hit by, at the same time as that, big port outages in terms of some of those larger ports in Southeast Asia, where big chunks of workforce were taken out, and then finally to get to New Zealand, we've been beset by our own local issues, particularly the ports of Auckland, running out new technology, and that having that fail, having significant worker shortages, which of course the trucking industry also has, and then issues like lots of ships waiting to berth in New Zealand and New Zealand ports. I've had photographs sent to me of a dozen logging ships off in Tairāwhiti off Gisborne waiting. You think about when the loss of productivity, waiting for the ship, ships waiting off the coast for days, the additional cost of that for the owners of the product, and then the actual getting the cargo off. Often it will take longer as well. There's more pressure at the port. There's congestion at the port. There's road congestion. There's people congestion. It's the supply chain is essentially tripped over itself, and we're going to see different things happen as we progress through. Now, I think a lot of the international stuff for the moment has improved, but we're still seeing fewer chips come to New Zealand. Richard, to go back to your original point.
Yeah, I was going to say most of the overseas countries, I would have thought would be starting to come back on more regular patterns now. How long do you think before we'll see that happening in New Zealand?
Well, I mean, if you think about, we've got a worldwide problem, and that's a labour shortage in many industries, and that's obviously a problem that many of you in business here will be facing as well. And so if you think about those lessons, I think that Judith mentioned sort of at the start for business, I mean, I'm not here to lecture anybody who's got their own business, but obviously we've got staff and we try to look after them at this point and ensure that they're happy. And I think that's a good lesson, because we are seeing people after 2 years of stress and mental fatigue want to have a change in their jobs. And we're seeing some industries, particularly like our industry, the trucking industry, where there was a baked-in shortage prior to COVID for a very long time. Those problems are becoming more acute.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Nick. Judith, you got a question?
No, it's
yes.
Michael. Oh,
Both
sorry.
of us.
Both of you.
So Michael is my partner in the business in Nada Bakery. It'd be funny if we have the same question, but anyway, my question is for James, from Wellington NZ. James, I wanted to know how much of your work entails businesses past the CBD and especially north, for obvious reasons. Very often, a lot of businesses in Johnsonville and Tawa feel like things stop at the bottom of the Naranga Gorge, and that we don't necessarily get much assistance, advocacy from some organisations. So do you think that's a problem for you guys, and do you think you could be doing more for those businesses?
Yeah, good question, Judith. So yes, as just to enlighten some of you, Wellington NZ is obviously includes the wider region, so up to Otaki and up to Castle Point as well. Yeah, you're bang on. A lot of the stuff, especially in my department, business growth, is Wellington Central. It's hard not to say it's a two-way street as well, like reaching out to us. So some of my portfolio is, because the congestion of how many businesses there are in Wellington, they do reach out a bit more. But saying that, some of that I do the Wairarapa as well, and the Pororoa, and it's, yeah, sometimes it is a hard draw card for businesses to actually do the asking and reaching out as well. But yeah, you bang on. Like a lot of regions don't feel that they're getting the love and support, and especially when we do like marketing love local campaigns and things like that, stickers on the thing, on the windows and stuff like that. But I think it is the pure numbers of businesses in the regions as well. So it always stems to Wellington heavy as a such. But yeah, there's always more we can be doing in the regions. That's right. But it's also about us knowing those success stories as well, and who's doing well in the regions and who's doing something different and things like that. But yeah, there's always more to be done. But yeah, I think a lot of times it can be a little bit of mindset on business owners in the regions. You know, I'm not the big city, or should I reach out to Wellington NZ, and am I big enough? Am I small enough? And things like that. So we're all like open arms, because, you know, we're dealing with SMEs, and I deal with everybody from under 50 FTEs. Now that's 50 FTEs is, you know, staff is a huge business now. And so we want everybody to reach out and any kind of support we can for the capability. A lot of it, we, you know, in my area, if someone is too small, like the project I do as a regional business partner network, it's a 50-50 scheme. So I can put in money to build your capability, but also you have to put in the money as well. And I guess at this current climate, some people are, you know, watching their pennies and things like that, and what they're spending on their development at the moment. But I'm all say, hey, go for it, because it's a 50-50 scheme at the moment. So yeah, but yeah, I get you.
How do we reach out to you though? How do we get to you? How do we encourage you to work with us?
Oh, so, you know, we've got a pretty big website called WellingtonNZ.com, and there's a business section on there. It's got all of our profiles and email addresses and things to reach out in there. But the main point of call is the Regional Business Partner Network. So we call what we call the RBP. So that's run by MB. And basically, if you log on to there and register your business for some support, it comes directly to us, and then we pick it up straight away. And then you get, you know, flicked to someone like me.
Cool. James, what I might do is gather some information on that. I've got a newsletter that's coming out soon. So Judith, we could kind of, take some of that information, put it into the newsletter and get it out to our businesses.
I think that would be really good.
Yeah, that would be a good opportunity.
Yes.
Michael, before I move on to your question, I've got a question that kind of links in with this, that involves Joseph. I was speaking to Jill Day yesterday, and Wellington City Council has just given the Chamber of Commerce $50,000 to run a sustainability boot camp. Now, I've been in touch with Joseph and Jenna yesterday, because I'd really love a Tawa business to get involved with this. So Joseph, could you just talk to us a little bit about that, please? Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is part of the council's recent grant program to reduce emissions within the Wellington City region. So we put forward a program on our end, which is trialled off something we did last year, and trialled off what we've done ourselves as an organisation, which is to become a carbon zero organisation. We've looked at reducing waste in our organisation's emissions across what we do, and we've been able to reduce them, I believe, by 33% a year over the past couple of years. So we've had a lot of success in that, and Jenna Williams, our sustainability person, created this program to effectively train businesses, especially small to medium businesses, to do the same thing. And with the council grant money, it's very, very accessible to everyone. So it's a series of workshops looking at the easy changes that these businesses can make to reduce waste, reduce emissions across their operations. And something we found in that is the larger businesses are already doing this. So the big major companies can hire a sustainability person, can go ahead and make the emissions reduction changes across what they're doing. But these workshops look at ways specifically at the small end of the business spectrum, and ways that these organisations can just make small changes that add up along the way to reduce the emissions. So Bernadette, I believe, is in touch with Jenna and can put the link out. It's very, very accessible to people. I believe it'll be free of charge. So yeah, we encourage anyone to get involved.
Thanks, Joseph. Michael, can we have your question, please? Remember it.
Yeah, look, I guess it's probably towards Nick, but probably some of the other people as well that will have inroads out there, and going back in regards to freight. So yeah, I'm involved with I'm at a bakery with Judith. I've also got another business that we operate called Total Baking, which actually imports and supplies bakery machinery throughout New Zealand, and we actually export a little bit of stuff as well. But question regards to shipping is, we're seeing with these congestions, a lot of extra charges coming across importing, invoices that come in. We've got a New Zealand port congestion charge, and a new one that's just popped up. We've got an Auckland transportation congestion charge, which I find quite interesting at the moment, considering there's actually no congestion in Auckland with COVID. I think people are actually doing 100 kilometres an hour on the southern motorway. So I was sort of wondering that they've bought in, these companies have bought in these congestion charges. What's the assessment period on these? How long are they staying on? Because at some points it looks like it's more of a way of generating extra revenue rather than actually eliminating extra costs. And I'm just wondering what the pathway for when those expenses may actually look to be reduced.
Those charges are reflective of cost increases that those organisations and businesses are facing, just like we're all facing cost increases. So they'll be inflationary, they'll be related to wages, to fuel costs, to all those items that are increasing on everybody's books. And the thing about that sort of congestion charge is that it can be put on and removed relatively quickly. And so it gives you the impression that it's a temporary charge. I wouldn't be planning, Michael, for it to be particularly temporary. I mean, if the charge might be removed, but other costs will go up. And I mean, this is the issue that we're all facing. We have to hand our costs on if we want to stay in business. So I'm being upfront about that. This is here to stay, in my view, for the immediate or medium term at least.
Yeah, so just to follow up to that then, and I hear what you're saying there. I mean, is there anything that you think that, as a country we can actually be doing to help move past these sort of congestion charges and those sort of things? Is there more efficiencies that businesses individually can actually be looking to do? Is there more pressure that can be put on certain areas of government that may be able to assist to reduce the bureaucracy, which adds a lot of extra cost throughout time?
Yeah, that's a really good question about government involvement, because we've got a government that sees itself as more involved in the economy than perhaps an alternative government would. And I think that's a blessing and a curse. The blessing is they jumped in 2 years ago, subsidised air freight, for which we should all be grateful, because we not only still have a national airline, but we're actually getting those goods. We're getting that freight, that fast freight, at a subsidised rate, internationally. The negative about it is that they want to fiddle. And the thing about the supply chain is that when it works well, it is a well-oiled machine, and it's not because somebody takes one part of it and says, "Oh, look, we want to do something here," which the government tried to do in the first lockdown, where they tried to say that this is priority freight, this is non-essential freight, and we warned them that all freight had to move for the supply chain to work, and they did get that message after a couple of weeks, and things began to slow down. We've also sort of seen they've got to focus on the supply chain now. They see its importance, and I'm not making a snide remark about the fact they didn't see it as important previously, but most of us take it for granted when it works, like we take for granted everything when it works. It's only when it doesn't work that we start to focus on it. So they've got a supply chain strategy. They've also got they've got some money that they're prepared to invest, some capital in the shipping industry. So we might see a bit more with coastal shipping infrastructure, which I think is a positive thing. It only carries 1% of our freight currently, but it's a mode of transport I think that we should be leaning into a little bit more. That's delivering freight within New Zealand around the coast, and overall, I think that we want less tinkering, Michael, in answer to your question. Let experts in logistics get on with the job. Listen to the infrastructure that, what are the things government can influence? They can help with workforce over time. They can help to build infrastructure, and we've seen precious little of that. It's not about making political statements about the ports of Auckland should shift to this destination. It's about asking, what does Auckland and the Upper North Island, in fact, the whole New Zealand economy, need from a new port if we're going to move a port? So it's asking those higher level, long-term questions rather than getting sort of bought off in the short-term politics. Sorry, long answer.
Thank you, Nick. Does anyone else want to jump in there with a response to Michael, Joseph, or Chris, or James? No.
Can I just ask a question
Yes.
on the supply chain? We have a lot of factories and capability here in New Zealand ourselves, and they don't supply to New Zealand businesses. They supply offshore because they get an awful lot more money by doing that. And if we actually, and maybe it's a government has to step in to assist in the supply chain to actually get these companies that are here in New Zealand that are supplying offshore to actually also supply to the New Zealand businesses themselves as well. And yes, that impacts the price, but it also assists the economy as well. Is there any thoughts or comments from anyone around that? Gosh, I didn't think it was that hard a question.
I guess it's all commercially driven, isn't it? And the reality is these, and in many cases, these contracts are in place well before these kinds of circumstances. So the challenges are, how much does government need to interfere in some of these things, or should it be? On one hand, we are facing challenges with the government interference. On the other hand, we're sort of asking for them to step in. So what are your thoughts, Nick?
My thoughts are I've talked enough already, but we are an economy at the end of the world with a very small population that relies on selling things to the rest of the world. To become more internally dependent knocks that somewhat. I think it's a very attractive thought, and I think necessity may see us leaning more on local supply and manufacturing. But at the same time, I don't think at this stage we should be looking to forego those international markets. If we've got to remain competitive, and we've got to earn more of our income, internationally as well. So I think I'll leave it at that, because but I'm interested, Anne, to hear, what your view, your response to that is as well.
I guess it's a balance. On one hand, we're being told, obviously I run a building company. On one hand, we're being told we're short of houses. Pre-COVID, we were short 10,000 houses, right? Post-COVID, we're short even more because of the amount of people that have come home. And yet we can't get standard framing, we can't get jib, we can't get materials we actually need to be able to deliver to the mandate from government around building more houses. So it's kind of like, is there a way to get a balance between? One of our staff has a friend that runs one of the factories in Rotorua. He rang him and said, any chance we can get some materials? He said, no, I'd love to, but no, because I get more money by going offshore. And it's like, it's a very large industry that actually helps give employment, helps with young kids coming out of school to give apprenticeships. There's so many flow-on effects, and it's not just affecting the builders, it then affects the plasterers and the painters and the plumbers and the electricians, because if we ain't got jib on the walls, they can't put any fixtures and fittings into the houses for the people. So the cost goes up for the consumer who's wanting to do a renovation or a new build, and then there's a whole lot of other sub-trades that actually are also affected by the flow-on impact of the materials and keeping that whole cycle moving, I suppose. It was just, is there any words of wisdom or suggestions or ideas on what and how we can help, not just us, but all of the rest of our team and sub-trades that we work with to actually help people them employed as well.
Yeah, it's
Down
to me, what you're talking there is the specific, actually, how do we build more houses faster, cheaper, using, and is New Zealand sourced product and material a goer to make that happen? I think that's an entirely different question, and I don't know the answer, but it sounds like a bloody good idea to me.
I think what we would suggest from the chamber perspective is, rather than putting direct controls on what you can sell offshore, because as Nick said, that's, I think, is an open trading economy that needs to sell a lot to the world to sustain ourselves. It's probably not a direction we want to go down. What we would say to the government is, get the basic settings right. Let more people into the country so that we have more skilled workers who can free up all sorts of blockages along that supply chain. Make sure that the trucks in the freight industry can get to their destinations on time, rather than certain ideological transport projects that might make that more difficult. Look at ways like the air cargo subsidy that Nick suggests has been a huge, huge help to our exporters, that we can get these materials into the country faster, and other things, in skills training and that other area, that we can speed up the economy domestically and help our production, rather than that kind of ambulance at the bottom of the cliff approach that might stop products going offshore, but hurt our chances as a trading nation as well. That would be my kind of hesitation on it.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Of James? I'm just interested to know, James, the changes that we're seeing, and I work in, most days I work in the Wellington CBD, and we're seeing challenges there, and Joe, you might be able to come in on this as well. It's not about walking away from the CBD, because I'm a great believer that Wellington, it's the powerhouse of our region, but has Wellington, New Zealand changed its thinking around what can be activated in suburbs? And if so, what might be some projects that people here in Tawa and in other suburban centres, or programs that they could engage with? Because you can see here there is a really engaged business community. And the other thing I'd just like to say, on that basis, the biggest catchment in the Wellington region, and I mean, you can cut this in many different ways, but I remember this from when we were trying to get the regional hospital at Kenny-Purdue. Nio to Puketoa Bay is the largest group of people. And we should, to think, instead of Tawa seeing itself on the outer edge of Wellington, which I agree, everything is arranged so you do feel like that, look at yourselves as the centre of a very large group of population with people with very similar suburban interests. So I'm sorry to get that point in at the end, but James, I hope you and Joe can follow the question.
Big question. I guess the initial reaction from Wellington NZ and the marketing side of things, of course, was attracting to the city. You know what I mean? It's, if you go out there right now, I know it's not everywhere, but it's dire. You know what I mean? It's empty. It's it's like a zombie apocalypse. But yes, there needs to be probably more spend in the regions and things like that. I guess I'm not the marketing department either, and where that spend lies. But Porirua City's always been what we see as a hard one because of the number of businesses as well. I know I keep saying that, but it's that two-way knowing what's going on in the area. So I don't have so there's no massive activations or anything happening in any suburb at the moment, because like my suburb of Miramar is thriving. It is huge. It is the working from home, people there spending more on the cafes, eating locally. They don't want to, and if they're working from home, it's really sad. Like, when we first sort of went into red, I'm like, it's not a lockdown, people, you know what I mean? And my wife works for government. It's like, oh, well, actually, stay safe and stay home. And I'm like, yes, but that was when we didn't have Omicron and things like that. It's like, well, what's happening to your favorite sushi bar, your favorite coffee joint in the city? I've got my favorite one on Gusney Street here closing the doors. It's been there for 16 years. And that's what it's sort of come to, because I think this whole working from home thing, it's a nice to have and things like that. But some of those people will be the ones who are crying, going, oh, I'll come back now, it's all good. And we know we're going to come back, because collaboration must happen in our businesses. We can't just sit behind screens all the time and think we're going to run a successful, Visit Wellington to the world kind of business. So it will come back. But no, at the moment, I don't know of any massive activations in the suburbs, apart from buying local and getting back in there. But on the other hand, there's plenty that businesses can be doing on their own. So sorry to pivot on the question, but the businesses in the room right now, in the last week, what kind of marketing have you done? Have you done one post or one thing? Like my father used to tell me, you can't sell a secret. And a lot of businesses I'm dealing with at the moment, nobody knows of them. They're good at what they do. All of these people in this room are good at what you do, but you can't tell a secret. We don't know about you. And we're not, we might think we're community engaged in the community. Like Nada Bakery is a household name and things like that, but we can't just rely on the household name. It's like, how do we reinvent? Can we do some more social media? And everybody goes to me, oh, James, but social media is hard and things like that. I said, yes, but what other marketing are we doing that's free, potentially free as well? And also they say, I don't have content. For me, everything is content. That croissant that comes out of the oven, that signage, I think there's a guy from the signage business, printing off the machine right now. Or if you can't, not too savvy on the social side of things, give it to an employee who might be a bit younger, a bit more savvier, and say, hey, would you like to look after our social for our business? But you set guidelines around it. I don't mean them at the party on the weekend going, yeah, how's it going? Promote the business. But again, they could take photos. And it's also, yourselves thinking, actually, I've just made this really good product, and if you're a product business, or I've done a building, or I've completed something, get your phone out. This is the number one key, to just take photos and upload it. And we have this mind blockage of, I'm not a business that needs to be on social. Well, my builder's on social, and he's a two-man band, and his feed is just all of beautiful homes or things that he's actually he's made, because we eat with our eyes. So as well as that is our customer experience. Just a side note, I went and got a haircut yesterday, and I'm in the barber shop. I've been with him for like 15 years. And he says to me, James, he says, these other two young barbers that I've got, the chairs are empty. They're just sitting there. And when the clients are coming in, they're on their phones, sitting in their own barber chair. And then they say, got a booking? And I'm like, oh, great, So I said, if a customer walks past that barber shop and sees two of the barbers in their chair on their phones with no customers and one doing the mahi, what does it look like from the outside? What is the customer's perspective from that? For me, excuse the French, that means it's a shit barber and he does a crap job because he can't fill his chair. So it's all of those kind of perception things that we have. So when your staff member is having an off day and they're on the front desk and they're not even smiling and saying hello, again, what's that doing to your brand? And at times like this, we need to be, hallelujah, how's it going? Rays of sunshine every shift. But again, I know obviously mental health of our staff is a well-being as well issue. So how are they feeling today? How we can wrap around that. So sorry, I've just whirled that all into one little bit while it's in my mind. But I think it's very, very key that your mindsets at the moment, we have to be bolder. We have to be more creative, courageous to actually get out of this sort of, and I don't even use, the COVID, because this is just business. We have to keep developing and churning and working harder and actually putting time aside for ourselves on that marketing and telling our story, basically. Well, there you go.
James, I just want to, I know that Wellington NZ support businesses like, say, with alternative boards and things like that. Do people actually know all these things that you help them with as well? Because, I know that the alternative board is struggling to find businesses to support groups of people so that they can do brainstorming on trying to come up with ideas for their businesses, and we're really struggling to find people to be on these boards. And I know that you guys support that by your 50% funding. So, you know, I think that needs to be out there a bit more.
Yeah, it's fair call. Like, a lot of people don't even know who Wellington NZ are. And when I say to them, oh, this is what I do and all that, they're amazed, you know. And it's amazing how we're a powerhouse with, you know, massive social media reach and you know, but again, we've got to be looking as well. But yeah, bang on, you know, we do fund and things like that. But also, you know, some providers, it's provider led, you know what I mean? You got to remember they're trying to sell and fill boards and things like that. But a lot of the market, I'm not just saying about the alternative board, but a lot of the market, like those kind of, you know, programs are too big for them. We actually need to step back a bit and actually probably go on a one-on-one coaching or, you know, half on digital enablement, you know what I mean? So what's coming out soon is you probably heard of Digital Boost, you know, version 1. Well, version 2 is coming out, and it's all about one to few. So it's actually getting in the room with other businesses and working on building your capabilities that way. So I think it's about finding your tailored fit, that something's not too high level. And sometimes, you know, I personally believe the one-on-one coaching, finding your fit there, that can give you that coach, that mentor can give you that drive, give you that input, a bit of accountability, because a lot of people need accountability, do your homework and things like that. So, but yeah, you're right. A lot of people don't know that the help is there, but you know, it is there. We do promote a hell of a lot. But again, are the business owners also on the right platforms? You know what I mean? People say, oh, LinkedIn's not for me because I'm not well, mate, we're all professionals in this room. LinkedIn is the biggest platform at the moment that you get organic reach from. So you're all business owners. Everybody needs a cross on in the morning from a builder at one point to printing my signage. So just think about what platform is for me, and don't get blocked by that. But just think LinkedIn, mate, we're all there looking for a plumber, a builder, you know, a pie at lunch, that they all can be potential customers. And if you just hit one, well, you've got one. And if you get the hook, then they come back.
Thanks, James. So Judith, have you got your hand up for a question?
Yes,
No,
I
sorry,
have.
oh,
And Michael as well.
Okay. Again. James.
Sorry, if I could also, Bernadette, just jump in, or Judith, were you asking a question too? Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt.
No, that's all right. If you got something to follow on, that's fine.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say to Nick's initial question of how we can promote these businesses outside of the CBD. What we really want to see is some leadership around that, because especially from local and central government, that can look at new ideas of what these places can look like. Because, you know, James mentioned that Miramar's thriving. Part of that is the emerging tech sector out there that isn't really talked about when you talk about Wellington's industries, but it's a predominantly export sector. There's a lot of it going on in Miramar, especially coming off of Weta, but going on a lot further than that. If you look out to the Hut, there's a lot of manufacturing in that area, and there's a chance for a real manufacturing corridor to develop right on Wellington's doorstep. And, you know, different things going on all over local and central government to look at how we can adapt to a post-COVID environment as well. Things like outdoor dining, I think, is something that are going to have to become a lot more common if we do deal with an endemic virus and have to adapt hospitality to that to cope. Something we were very happy to see, for example, was Aotearoa City Council vote to delay the removal of free parking in the CBD. That was something that, you know, these businesses in Aotearoa, they've dealt with a pandemic, they've dealt with all of the shocks that we've been through, and they just need that extra little bit of leadership and assistance from the council to help them get over the line going forward. So it's something we push for a lot, is just ideas to come from whether it's central government, local government, or other agencies to look at how we can adapt these businesses to and adapt these areas outside of the CBD post-pandemic.
Thanks, Joseph. Judith?
Yes, well, several things occur to me. One is we have looked a number of times over the years as to whether we should open a branch in the CBD, and I just thank goodness we never have at this stage. James, I think Wellington NZ could do a lot more in the area of advocacy for businesses and what Joseph just mentioned about outdoor dining and so on. That's something that needs development and needs serious thoughts thrown at it. I'd just like to go to Chris and ask if you have some strategies that businesses could be using at this particular time to, yes, the suburbs are doing well, and we certainly do a lot of posts on social media if you follow us, but how do we maintain the growth, and how do businesses that have suffered get some of it back? Chris, have you got some ideas?
Absolutely, Judith. We've been working in a lot of suburban centres recently, and I think the key thing is that we know there's a huge amount of spending attrition that happens in our suburban centres. So there's already a captive opportunity to be able to pull back some of this. So we need, as a collective, to be, again, re-engaging people with our communities, our town centres, telling our stories in a much better way, and that happens collectively. We need to be encouraging businesses not only to tell their stories, but also share the stories of new businesses that are opening. So a good example of a project that we're doing in one of the suburban centres in Auckland is that all the businesses are talking fondly and favourably about other things that are happening, and getting that cross-pollination is really important. Coming back to what James was saying before, the first thing that popped up this morning on my feed was Tea Bay Cafe in Tea Bay, new operation, really do social media exceptionally well, and they've recognised there's a lot of people self-isolating in their community. So this week they're doing deliveries out to all of those people. So I thought, wow, that's a pretty cool thing. I mean, thinking for myself, if I was stuck at home and really hanging out for my coffee, how would I do it? And here's their solution. I thought that's a really good responsive way. We're seeing younger businesses see less barriers. And I think the challenge for many of us who've been in business a long time is that we kind of put up barriers. Oh, that won't work. We tried that before. Yet some of the younger businesses are just giving things a go. If they don't work, they pivot, they do something a bit differently. So firstly, we've got a lot of captive opportunity to get more of our local spend. We need to be telling people to shop local is not the be all and end all. What we do need to do is kind of earn their goodwill and show that we are adapting our offers and experiences according to what our markets are telling us. But working collectively as a group, and that through Bernadette, it's a really good vehicle to be using, and through the community groups, we know Tawa is particularly strong in community. So getting our community to start reorientating people back into that local suburb is really important.
Thank you, Chris. Michael, have you got a question?
Yeah, it was probably directed at James a little bit more, and just picking up on some comments that you made around one probably about the CBD and how people will come back and it'll get it'll get busy and things will improve and things like that. I wonder what sort of data you've got on that, and whether we are actually seeing a bigger shift as a society to actually removing ourselves from mass gathering areas such as the CBD. And to be honest, what's wrong with that shift away from the CBD to how we've actually moved out to more suburban, using more of our resources throughout the area, and how why Wellington NZ, I picked up on the comment that you're basically looking forward to being able to encourage everyone to come back, and which probably for everyone in this group is something that we don't want to happen, is actually forcing people back into the CBD and have their spend out there, because we're about spending in the suburbs.
Yeah, good question. So stats, there's no numbers to it. It's just my experience in the business I've been talking to. They're saying, that the hybrid model will still be there, but there's going to be, I'm telling you now, the big businesses and stuff like that, the people will be going back to work. It won't be running full-time remote teams. There's no collaboration. There's no growth in those areas. So that's just my point of view. I think you will see once we all sort of come out to this, there'll be a bit of a hybrid model. I do 1 day a week at home. I'm an extrovert. I go crazy at home. I've got 3 young boys and the wife's working at home. It's a no-go. So I'm coming to the office. But saying that, there's massive in the regions. And I think Joseph, touched on things like, if you look at Upper Hutt right now, I don't even need to talk about them. There's things like that. Miramar, we've touched on that. There will be hubs in the regions. There will be businesses in there. If people can get in there, open businesses, create different branches and things like that. I'm not saying we're going to take away from that, but I guess obviously, Wellington CBD is in dire. So, some of the promotion around is, hey, support those ones, because people are worried if you come back into the city and it's a ghost town. Well, they're not even going to fly into Wellington and have a good weekend and things like that. Because I remember back in the day, some cities, with the liquor licensing, I think it's Christchurch or someone like that, closing so early, and people were like, well, why would we go to that city when we can't have a good time and everything closes at 10:30? I think more of a sort of that kind of aspect that Wellington NZ are probably looking at that one campaign coming back in and supporting. But yeah, the suburbs are thriving, but again, I think Alyssa touched on, it's creating those communities, creating those offerings, and even with the T-Bay delivering and things like that. Most people will, admit, oh, James, but that's another staff member, that's a hassle. But that's your own blockage here. If I can get a product in my hand, whether it's a bakery, a pie, or some signage or a thing like that, you've got to try before you buy. So then you might hook that customer, then they come down and because you've had such great experience and the great product. There you go.
Yeah, so just following up on that though, so what you're saying though is Wellington NZ going to consider about how they can actually keep the successes going of somewhere like Tawa? We are, we've done reasonably well as of late. We've pivoted, we've changed our business, and we actually do a lot of deliveries outside of Wellington, throughout the whole of North Island, to be honest. And I'm wondering what Wellington NZ's actually wanting or able to do to actually keep that momentum going for the suburbs. While yes, it's revitalising the CBD, I think there's a whole range of other issues within the CBD. You got let's get Wellington moving. You've got issues with certain other areas of policy with council that are sort of driving sort of quite a divided population, and sort of where we're going. We're at quite a critical point, but what's Wellington NZ sort of actually going to, what's your advice, and what can they actually do to help keep that growth that the suburbs like Tawa have experienced, to actually keep that momentum going rather than take away from it and take the spend into the city? What can you guys actually do to help keep us going?
Yeah, good question. So as I said, I don't know the marketing plan or anything like that. So, just to touch on, Wellington NZ is, the economic development agency. So it's big on promotion, and advertising and things like that. We're not saying we don't do anything in the suburbs. All our EDMs and emails and things like that. There's a lot of, suburb focus on that. But to be honest, I don't know what the next 12 months on marketing campaigns and plans are, because that's not my team. But, we are there for the regions, and we are here reaching out and things like that. So, but yeah, I can't answer that question. Sorry, Michael.
I might just jump in there. I think that, there's the long answer is there's room for both. We're going to see a very different city centre develop going forward. We're seeing already how city centres are evolving overseas. And the fact is that, we're a government-led city, we've got large corporates, and those decisions are being made for the corporates, they're being made overseas. Many of those places are still working remotely. And so, Wellington, we kind of need to earn the return. So we need to develop environments that people want to be part of. The big focus overseas is talking to the people 35 and under. And I think there's a general consensus, if we get it right for this group, then we're going to get our cities right for the rest of the population as well. So considering our future and success of audiences is a key part. But I think with our suburban centres, you know, we are going to see people on that, you know, there's talk around the 2/3 model for the city, so that people will still be working from home a couple of days a week. That is kind of embedded, and I think we're accepting of the fact that there's going to be this going forward, whatever. The most important thing for our suburban centres is to look at those anchors, the likes of businesses like yourselves, those places that people visit on a habitual and basis for coffee, for their lunches, for socialising. So strengthening our food and beverage is a key part. If we strengthen food and beverage and keep that strong, then retail comes with it, okay? You need to spend, you spend more in food and beverage than you will do going and buying shirts every day. So getting our some strategy and structure around our the future development of our town and city centres is really important.
Thank you, Chris. I'm very mindful that we've just gone over time, but also that we've had a couple of people that haven't spoken. So Jennifer, Trudy and Jack, if you've got anything, if you've got a question that you'd like to ask, please ask it. If not, we'll kind of wrap up for the morning. No, you're all right? Okay, thanks, Trudy. Jack, have you got a question? No. Okay, that's cool. And Jennifer? No.
Bennett, I can ask just one other thing, if it's okay.
Yeah, thank you.
I think comments have been made earlier that the suburbs have been doing you know, pretty well certainly during the most of the time. But I think in recent weeks with the wave of Omicron, maybe not so well. There's been a lot of businesses, you know, sole proprietor businesses that have actually had to close while one or a family member have been in isolation, and a lot of people just seem to be getting quite weary of this thing going on for two years now. I noticed the other day people starting to put up notices on their businesses that they're closing for Saturday trading, for example, and I was in at our local bookshop yesterday, and they're really looking forward to Easter weekend, where they're going to close for Saturday and have, you know, a 4-day holiday for their staff, just to give them a break. I don't know, I've got a real question, but just an observation that there's a lot of people in our business community that are really tired, and that, you know, I don't know what we can do for them. Any suggestions?
I think just making sure these messages get amongst the community, you know, the support. Businesses are very grateful for people coming in, but also being able to acknowledge the challenges that businesses are having. You know, we talk about the challenges that city centres got, but we're seeing a lot of businesses in our suburban centres and across the region are shutting. So this is not specific to the city centre, it's across the board. And we've got a perfect storm right now with, you know, the rising cost of living. All of these things are weighing on people's minds. So kind of sharing the love is a key part of this. So whatever we can do amongst the media, amongst our communities to support those businesses is really important.
Mm.
Right. Anyone else got any final words before we wrap up for the day? It's quite a nice note to end it on there, Chris, actually.
I was going to say just one last thing, you know, and one thing, it sounds kind of counterintuitive, but for Tawa, maybe it could have a family and friends Easter where, you know, everyone did shut on Saturday. It's not a bad thing, you know, recognizing that this is a very family orientated place. So it's one of those things we should be prepared to give those businesses some slack and see things for different reasons.
Okay, well, thank you guys. Thanks for coming along today, and thanks to our guest speakers. So if you have any other questions, like if anyone's like me and we finish this and you go, oh my goodness, I forgot to ask this really fabulous question, just email it through to me and I'll pass it on to our guest speakers. But thank you once again for coming along today. It's been great to see everybody, some fabulous questions. I hope everyone's got some useful information from it. And we'll hopefully see some of our businesses in a fortnight's time for the next session, isn't it? Free. Thanks very much, guys. Have a good day.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
Care. Thanks.
Bye.
Very much
Bye.
for organising, Bernadette. See ya.
All right. Cheers.